Welcome to the Pest Empire Builder Podcast. On today's episode, Lenny and I are talking about building your own in-house door-to-door team. You don't want to miss this episode. And welcome to the show. I'm so glad you tuned in today. On today's episode, I'm hanging out with Lenny Gray, and we're talking about building an in-house team for your own door-to-door sales. Lenny, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Matt. It's good to be back on the show.
Absolutely, man. It's always good to have you. And it's the door-to-door sales has been kind of your bread and butter, kind of like the foundation of what you've done. I mean, you obviously do a whole lot more than that now, but I know people come and talk to you still all the time about it. And we were just chatting before I hit record and talking about how building your own in-house team maybe isn't as complicated as everybody makes it out to be.
Yeah. So I talk to business owners every week. That's just part of what I do, and been working with business owners in 48 different home service verticals. A lot of pest, of course, because that is my background. I've been in the pest industry since 1998. Started as a door-to-door rep, and then worked my way into starting my own company with my business partner in 2003. And Up until just recently, I was the CEO of that company until 2025. And then we exited there, and we'll see what the future holds. But it's like I tell people, I was a CEO for 22 years. I knocked doors full time for about 5. So
right.
I look at door to door and how to build a team a lot differently than a lot of these people out here that just market, or they just hire a bunch of reps and they sub those out. And I see that mistake too often, Matt, where people will spend a fortune to get some company out of Utah to hire them a big team, having all these visions of grandeur of this changing their life and their perspective of growth in their business and profitability and that. And unfortunately, and we can get into the nitty gritty, but unfortunately, more often than not, it doesn't work. And so what I'd rather do is teach business owners how to manage and run and build their own door-to-door program, because they can do it and they don't need to have connections in Utah. And that's right. The best news maybe of the whole podcast.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of funny how in our industry, the Mormon missionary door-to-door sales thing is like a thing. And so getting the company from Utah, right, it's really interesting how that's kind of a stereotype thing that happens. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be that, right?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I started as a missionary. So I served a 2-year mission for the church, and I was in Washington, D.C., and all I did for 7 days a week for 6 to 8 hours a day was knock doors. That's all I did.
Wow.
And so when my buddy told me you could go knock doors and make money, I thought, man, it was really tough to sell Jesus. So if I can make money selling pest, why not? Right? Like, I can do that.
Right.
But
that's true. Selling Jesus, you're selling like eternity, right? You know, and it's like, well, that's out there somewhere in the distance, that cockroach just crawled across your 4 or 5 minutes ago. So it's real easy to see the pain point of like, I need this bug gone.
Yeah. But, if that bug goes or not, it doesn't depend on your eternal salvation. So, it's like, you took it a lot more personal. I did as a missionary versus just selling pest control. It's like, whatever. Okay. You don't want to get rid of your bugs. You don't want to prevent bugs. That's okay. We can go to the next door. It doesn't bother me. But I would even say that landscape has changed with missionaries. I have kids that are I have one who's a return missionary, one who's currently serving a mission. And my first son, he didn't knock a door in 2 years. Now, granted, It was COVID and he was in Colorado, but he literally did not knock a single door, like a cold contact. He'd knock on members' doors and do visits and things like that. But he, for 2 years, never knocked on a door. And I couldn't believe it. My son right now, who's serving, he's in Brisbane, Australia. I mean, that kid's done a lot of street contacting, which I think is great, but it's not a big part of what they do to find people and teach people. It's just,
interesting.
Even the mission landscapes have changed from the 90s when I was serving.
So do you think that changes in pest control? Because is that like a total cultural type shift that's happening? Or do you think, or is the pest control industry does it still work for door to door with pest?
Yeah, I once did an analysis on the PCT 100. Everybody in the pest industry knows what that is. Everybody looks at that. The top, revenue generating companies in the world or whatever, and at least in the Western Hemisphere, I would say. I don't know if they measure too much across the pond, but I would say that when that list first came out, I'm trying to remember what year it came out. It was 20 some odd years ago. There was one company on there that would do door to door as a primary method of growth. one of the 100.
Wow.
If you look at that list now, not only are there probably 25 to 30 companies that do door-to-door to grow on that list, but some of the biggest companies in the world now started by building their companies on the backs of door-to-door programs. If not started, they're continuing to do that. Like top 10,
Wow.
top 5 companies. And
Right.
so just in the last 2 decades, you've seen this monumental shift in the pest control industry from people going, oh, that's just for Utah companies, or that's just for, California companies that have this, religious background of people knocking doors, when the reality is I'm teaching people all across the states and up in Canada how to do
Right.
it. Don't have to do it with a bunch of returned missionaries either. So
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you're looking for candidates, or you're looking for someone who can be on your door-to-door team, what are some of the qualities you're looking for?
So the great thing about what we do is we built our program on door-to-door. I mean, when we started our company in 2003, it was 2 of us. I was selling, my business partner was spraying. That was it. It was 2 of us. I put on in 2003 about $500,000 worth of business, about 1,200 pest control accounts. In today's world, that would be about $850,000 worth of business. So just to give some equivalency. And that really got us going. And then we felt like we had the revenue to where we could go afford to get a handful of reps the next year, then 25, 35 reps the next year, 40 reps the next year. We just kind of kept growing and building that. So when you're out recruiting for people, I think the first misconception about doing your own door-to-door program is you need 20 people. In fact, I would discourage you from starting with 20 people, especially if you've never done it before. Because now you'll probably, if you have a full head of hair, Matt, you'll look like you probably after week 6. Like you'll lose your hair, you'll stress, you'll freak out, and it's not pretty. Like
Right.
having a door-to-door program to me is like having a newborn.
Well, that's how I lost my hair, actually.
There you go.
That's exactly how I lost it. I hired 20 door-to-door reps 20 years ago, and it all fell out.
I told you. So case study in point, right there. but yeah, so it's like having a newborn. And you have this door-to-door program, and you don't know when a newborn needs their diaper changed, when they're going to need to be fed, when they need to be rocked, when they need to. You don't know. You just got to be there on call 24/7. You never know what's going to happen. And if you aren't ready for that, at the level of having 5 reps, 10 reps, how in the world are you going to be ready for that with 15 to 20? You're just not. It's
Right.
not manageable. And beyond that, operationally, you're going to really strain your program if the amount of accounts that these reps can put on can actually get a quality service by a quality technician within a day or 2 of being sold, so they don't change their mind, buyer's remorse, all those things.
Right.
Like you're going to be stretched further than you've ever been stretched. And I'm saying that from somebody that did that, consistently for more than a decade in my own company when we were just all out door to door. And I never had a summer where I felt like I got this. Like there was always something new, something different, something that just stretched me beyond capacity. So the first mistake is don't think you need to hire it out. I guess the second mistake is if you do it yourself, you need to manage it appropriately to where it is manageable. Now there's a number that makes sense too, because if you just have 1 or 2 reps and they're both new reps, they're not experienced reps, and you don't know what you're going to get, well, misery loves company. You have 2 reps and they go 2 or 3 days, they don't sell anything, or they're having a difficult time, there's a high probability they might just both quit. So, and then you have nothing, right? So I like the idea of having between 5 to 8 reps your first year. What that means is you're going to have to hire 10 to 16, by the way, because attrition, even before they start knocking doors, is about 50%. And that's probably being a little conservative, maybe over-exaggerating, but I'd rather do that than tell you, hey, go ahead and hire 5 and you'll end up with 4. But probably not.
Got it.
So you hire 10 to 16 reps, you probably have 5 to 10 that start and finish their summer, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I look at it and I say, if each rep, at minimum, if they're not experienced, we say that they'll put on at minimum $50,000 worth of business. That's what we've always kind of said, $50,000 to $60,000 worth of business. Depends on markets and contract values and things like that.
Yeah.
So now I can start to back in and reverse engineer what that means for my company. So I might say, hey, I want to put on $500,000 in new business in 2026. So what do? Well, to get $500,000 worth of business, that's 10 reps. So to get 10 reps, I probably better hire 20 that are going to stick around and each average about that $50,000 mark. Now I can start to backfill with how many technicians do I need? What does that look like? How much product do I need? You can start to build in your costs based on kind of a formula rather than just guessing or keeping your fingers crossed. Because we've all seen the mistake of they have no idea what kind of volume's being done. And now you have reps that are scheduling new appointments, new starts a week out. I'm telling you, if you're anything past 2 days out on a cold call, this isn't somebody that calls the phone and you can say, yeah, we'll be there next month, and they're happy because they looked you up and they did the pay-per-click and they did their research. These are people you're just magically, out of thin air, you're creating interest, you're generating a lead. You need to capitalize on that same day or next day, ideally 2 days out at the latest. If you're after 3 days, we see a significant drop because people change their mind, they get buyer's remorse and all this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, then they take the time to like really think about it, and they're like, well, I don't know, maybe do I really need this? I'm not sure. Yeah. Just get that first service out instantly is ideal. But yeah, I see what you're saying there. Yeah. So when you're starting to build out your team, so you want to hire like 20 to get 10, and you kind of reverse engineer it all the way down. And then your training program, like how do we actually train them how to do this?
Yeah, I love that, because this is probably the biggest mistake that owners make. Is they say, okay, we're going all in on door to door. I've got my guy, or I'm the guy, quite frankly, and we're going to go all in on it. And so what do? They put all their time, effort, energy, resources into recruiting and hiring. And then they get these people, okay, we got them. We finally got, a nice team of 10. And then it's like, all right, boys, go knock doors. Good luck.
What are we going to say? How do you open it? How do you create? How do you overcome objections? How do you,
Yeah, here's the deal. So
build trust.
I, after, again, being a CEO of our company for 22 years, I built all the pest control models, basically, to not only provide pre-season training to get somebody ready to knock doors, but training into perpetuity, where you can continue to train off the material, off my systems and process. I've already got that. People can go to my website and find that. But if somebody wants to just create it themselves, Matt, I put so much free stuff out there that if somebody wanted to take a couple years and just go through all my YouTube videos and social media stuff, my app, my books, kind of my low cost to no cost stuff, like they could figure it out. I mean, it's not like a ton of secrets, but I've also packaged that specifically for pest control owners too, that they can just buy it, right? And then they have it, and then it's there. And now they've got the training to back up all that effort they put into recruiting and hiring, and their retention is going to improve if they have the right. I would argue training's the most important thing. You can be the best recruiter, you can hire the best people. If you don't have the right training, your attrition will suffer, and it's just not, you're not going to build anything solid. Yeah,
absolutely. And so when you're out looking to hire these guys, is there a specific profile of a person that you think does better in the door-to-door, because I got to find 20 people. I got to find 20 people to hire, and half of them are going to drop out. But if I'm hiring the wrong 20 people and I have the wrong 10 people out there knocking doors, is there a certain type of person that's going to be more effective than another? Younger, older, male, female, does that kind of stuff have an influence, certain personality traits?
Yeah. And there are, I would say generally just from the age demographic, your late teens to late 20s, mid to late 20s probably is where you're looking.
Okay.
You got to find out where those people hang out. And we've got kind of a 4-pronged recruiting approach that we can talk about here in a little bit as well. I would also say that doesn't mean that there's not others that couldn't do it. We've had in different programs I've run, we've had 40s, 50s, 60-year-olds that go out and knock doors. Here's what I think, Matt. I think that those who are willing to knock doors, I call them the 1%ers. I think there's 1% of the human population that if they said, hey, your job is going to be knocking on a stranger's door and trying to sell them something, I bet 99% of human beings would say, screw you. Like, I will go pick up the trash. I will go clean up, whatever off the sidewalks or off people's front lawn. I'll go work as a cadaver or whatever. People would do almost anything besides go knock on a stranger's door. So I think the first thing you look for is people who are willing to do it. If you have a good job description, people know it's door to door, just those people that are willing, I think that's almost the biggest catch right there, because those are the 1%ers anyway. But then you get that person, and who generally does well? Sure, you got athletes, you got people that have been in competitive sports or competitive music or competitive theater, even gamers, that are competitive gamers. People with a little competitive itch, I think, do really well at door to door. Again, if they're willing, this is just my confidence level from doing it as long as I have, Matt. My training, I feel like anybody who's willing, I'll make them able with my training.
Okay.
That's just what I do. It's like, if you're willing to go do this, here's the scripts that work. Here's how to do it the right way. Here, again, ethically, that's super important for me as well. I don't want people, if I get the sense in an interview that somebody's a little shady, I don't want them in my company. Because again, I look at my door-to-door program as I'm building it as I'm building my brand, my reputation. That's all on the line with my door-to-door team. So somebody who is honest, ethical, has a good moral foundation, those are the type of people I'm looking for as well.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, it's hard to find those people who are willing to go knock on a door. You're right. Like, most of humanity is like, there's no way I could ever do that, because the constant rejection and not taking it personally is difficult. And you have to have a certain brand of person, a certain breed of human who is willing to just go, here, no, over and over until they get a yes. And then hone those skills to where you can figure out, can I get less no's? How can I overcome these things? And they find it as a challenge and fun, not as personal rejection, because boy, it's for most of humanity, I think that they take it as personal rejection all day long. Yeah.
And we always say, it's the learning curve for this, in our experience, has been a new rep has to talk to 600 people, not knock 600 doors. They have to talk to 600 potential customers. When they do that, at that point, they've kind of heard everything they're going to hear enough times to where they can start to formulate what their rebuttals are going to be or how they're going to answer certain questions. So again, reverse engineer that. And we say, okay, if I've talked to 600 people, when we're recruiting people, we let them know that. Like, your first 2 to 4 weeks are going to suck, by the way. It's going to be miserable. You're going to get your teeth kicked in. All this is going to happen. We set that proper expectation, because nobody, generally speaking, comes out of the gate firing if they've never done it before. And so they'll hit some, get some hits every now and again. You swing the bat enough, right? You'll get a hit every now and again, sure.
Yeah.
But to actually start to sell consistently and to know what your ceiling is that first year, it's 600 people. So we look at it like this, and we say, okay, we're knocking 6 days a week in the summer. We're knocking 7 hours a day. One of the KPIs we measure is the number of people you talk to per hour. We shoot for 7. That's our goal. Now, unless you've made a sale, you try to talk to 7 people in an hour.
Yeah.
If we're talking 7 people an hour, 7 hours a day, 49, we're in pest control, so we don't do math, and we say, okay, let's make it 50. Let's just round it up, because we're not good math people.
Right.
So we say, okay, 50 people a day, 6 days a week. That's 300 people, 2 weeks. That's about as aggressive as you can get with overcoming that learning curve. So if everybody's just patient with that. So, and I'll tell you, Rob, one of the partners here at PEB, so that was his story. Rob spent his first 2 weeks in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Shout out. There you go, Matt.
That's right.
Albuquerque.
That's right.
And he spent the first 2 weeks of his first summer in Albuquerque, made 0 sales.
Yep.
0. And he would have went home, but he didn't have any money. And his parents bought him I think a bus ticket to get down there from Idaho, and he just didn't have money to go home. So he's like, well, I guess I'll stick it out. I've been here for 2 weeks. I'll just kind of keep going. Kid ended up as top rookie in his office, not in the company, but he ended up the top rookie in his office because he just stayed there and he kept going. So kind of this law of 600 is real. I don't care if a rep hasn't sold anything. If they've talked to 600 people, now we start to actually understand what this is all about.
Right. And you start seeing the patterns, and there's a psychology behind it too, both for the guy knocking the door, that you got your head wrapped around this process, but then you start to understand the psychology of the person answering the door, because you start seeing the same types of responses every time. And that opens the door for, okay, how am I going to navigate this one? I see the same obstacles coming up, and then it's like, okay, I know how to jump over that hurdle. I've seen this hurdle before. I can do it again. And I think getting your mind wrapped around too, like what a healthy close rate is, okay, I don't know, maybe you could tell me, because I don't know this rate, but how many people do I need to talk to before I get a sale is average. And then you're like, well, what is that rate actually? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, let's spit out some KPIs. I love
I
talking
love
about
it.
these numbers, man. So I
Yeah.
can do this all day. So we have a lot of different measurables, and it is going to depend. And that number, your conversion rate or your closing
Yeah.
ratio, will change. But let's kind of start from the beginning and work our way through. Just because if you're a business owner now and you have reps or you're hiring reps, what should your expectations be? So I kind of gave you the law of 600.
Yep.
So we have the one of the measurements that our reps need to make is what we call a knock to talk ratio. And our knock to talk ratio is basically says, and I write about this in one of my books. I think it was my second book, the green one. I just call my books by the color because nobody remembers the name. So the green book is kind of more high level stuff. But we talk about this knock to talk ratio. I have what I call a 3-door rule. And my 3-door rule is basically like if you're out knocking doors and I've knocked on 3 doors and nobody's answered or I haven't talked to a decision maker, then I will walk a block away if I see somebody out mowing their lawn or a garage door open or any signs of life so that I can talk to people. Because as you mentioned before, you get inside your head if you're knocking on doors and you're not talking to people. Because you're not making money. You might start thinking about the weather, or you could be doing something else with your life. I mean, it's a mental game more than physical. So we have a 3-door rule. So my knock to talk ratio at the very worst has to be 25%, 1 out of 4. I've got to be talking to somebody. Okay. Then we're measuring how many of those contacts we have per hour. Again, 7 is the goal. I'll live with 5 from a rep, but 7 is the goal. So now we have kind of what our hourly talk is. And by the way, the measurement of how about how many doors do you knock? I always get asked this, business owners relentlessly. Well, how many doors do they need to be knocking a day? I couldn't care less how many doors they knock. I've never been paid money by knocking on a door. It's only when I'm in conversation with people that it matters.
Yep.
So I don't measure that at all. So then what we have is what we call our qualifying ratio. So we're talking to 7 people an hour. We want a qualifying ratio means I get through my initial approach and that person is a likely candidate for what I'm selling. I have 5 main qualifiers. We don't necessarily need to get into them here. But essentially, if somebody is qualified for my time, now they've hit that qualifying mark. We got to qualify half. In pest control, we got to qualify at least half the people we talk to. What's an easy one of the 5 qualifiers, for instance, if I notice bugs, I notice a wasp nest or spider webs or ants as I'm walking up to their house. Well, they're qualified because there's a need. If I see a need, that's a qualifier, right? That's somebody that's worth my time to talk to. So then we have our qualifying ratio. About half of those 7, again, on average, or 50 in a day, 25 should be qualifying, at least. In some markets, it should be a lot more than that. But I can live with 50%. If it's less than that and I'm in a traditional market like a Houston or a Dallas or a Orlando or Baton Rouge, I don't know, California, if I'm in a market that's a traditional pest control market that they get bugs year round, then it should be a lot higher than 50%, but I can live with 50. So then at that 50% qualifying ratio, now I determine what my closing ratio is. So I have the qualifying ratio. Now how many accounts am I closing? Really good reps should probably be at about 25 to 33%. 1 in 3, 1 in 4 people I qualify, I close. A new rep might be at about 5 to 10% when they start. So then we start to do those numbers and say, okay, if I've talked to 50 people, I've qualified 25 people. Mm-hmm. If I can close 5% of those 25 people, again, I'm not a math guy. I just sell pest control, Matt. But that's probably around what, 1 and a quarter, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's good, right? If I'm a new rep and to get to 1 a day, that's the first benchmark after you hit the rule of 600. Then that first benchmark is, can I sell consistently 1 a day? Nice.
And then as you get better, you're like, okay, my goal is getting up to, 1 a day, and I'm going to get to two a day.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Or we could say 2.5 a day, or we start talking about 10 a week. Double digits. We get to 10 a week. That could be the next benchmark after that. And then just on the back end of that, there is another measurable that we have, another KPI, and that is our cancellation rates. And we have two different buckets there. We have a pre-initial service cancellation rate and a post-initial service. And the pre-initial service cancel rate, my ideal is between 10 to 20%. So that means if I sell 10 accounts, if 1 or 2 of them change their mind before we show up with the truck, I'm okay with that. If it's less than that, then I probably got a rep that's just selling the easy stuff, quite frankly. And we've got to do some better training because I want to see some attrition. Now, I don't want to see it past 20% because if I see it past 20%, it's probably going to the solidifying the sale. What are they missing? What are they missing in their communication to that customer once they've agreed to the service? So that's kind of the pre-service pre-initial service cancellation bucket, then the post should be very low. I like to say it's under 5%. My third year selling, one of my top years selling for Orkin, I was in Jacksonville, Florida in 2000. I sold 674 pest control accounts that summer, and wow. I was paid for 668 of them. I lost 6 accounts by the time I received my full commission. So well under 1%. But again, if we can be at under 5%, that's kind of the goal.
That's awesome. So then as a door-to-door guy, you have your numbers and you kind of know. I love the KPIs. You have that mastered. And so as a guy, you're knocking, you're like, okay, I know if I knock this many doors, I should talk to this many people. But you don't really know that. The law of like what you said, 3 doors, no contact, I'm going to find someone to talk to. So I got to talk to this many people. And you're right. Then you're qualifying them. Okay, you work your way down. But if you know your numbers and you go, okay, I need to talk to this many people in order to see this many closes. And then you have like your RBI number out of, like you think about baseball. There's so many at bats, so many times you're going to swing at a ball. You're not going to hit every pitch that comes your way, obviously. And even when you hit the ball, sometimes they go foul or whatever. Not every time you swing the bat, you hit a home run. And it's just knowing your numbers and knowing, okay, this is about what I should be doing. And so I think that's encouraging because, when you get a no, it's like, that's one more no till I get my yes. And that's one more no till I get my yes. And then it's like, okay, now I know that I'm going to get this many no's before I get a yes. And if you are tracking like, okay, I'm going to get 25 no's before I get a yes, then you hit 25 no's, you're like, oh, my yes is right around the corner, Yep. And so that it's like, okay, it's right here. This next guy's going to buy, this next guy's going to buy. And you kind of get in but you got to get in your head on sales. I did outbound telephone sales for a long time, and it was the same thing. It was like, people are going to pick up the phone and this, I used to sell long distance over the phone, but I remember back in the day.
Long distance. What's that, Matt? How old are you?
I know, right?
I'm older than you, so.
Yeah, I had hair back then, that's when I lost my hair. So trying to sell, I worked for MCI was a telephone company selling long distance and internet service. I was selling DSL to internet service, which was like all the rage back then. Yeah. And people, you had to try to convince people why they would want high speed over dial up. And so I was just on the phones doing outbound sales. I did that for a while. And it was the same thing. Like I had my KPIs. I knew what my averages needed to be. I knew what the numbers needed to be. And in the beginning it was like all day I'm on the phone, just talking to person after person after person. The auto dialer's just like pounding. And I'm just working the phones all day long. And first 3 weeks, like I didn't sell anything. And I was so discouraged. But like you have the law of 600. And I don't know what the rule was. It was so long ago. I don't have that remember those data numbers now, but I knew there was a point where it's like, oh, any minute now I'm going to get my sale. I've done the numbers. I've done the math. Any minute I'm going to get it. And then once I got a sale, it was like, okay, now I know, I can do this. And I think the more sales you get, the more confident you get. And all of a sudden you start, like you say, you hear the same objections all the time, over and over and over again. And then pretty soon you're like, I've heard this so many times. I know exactly what to say to get past this hurdle. Yeah, and then they put up another barricade, and then okay, I know exactly how to navigate this barricade. I know how to get around this one. And it's just kind of like, you start getting the reps in, and then pretty soon you got your numbers, your KPIs, you know exactly what you should be expecting out of yourself.
Yeah. But and I would say this to that, and you're spot on. But I also would say this, is in sales, nothing is guaranteed, right? Like right. I would not take my average. If you get too granular with sales, you're going to hurt yourself mentally.
Oh yeah.
I would look at things in terms of a week, not in a day or two. Like if you think,
right.
If you think it's like, oh man, I only made 3 sales in the last 2 days, that means I'm probably only going to be a 9 sale rep or whatever. No, not necessarily. I would look at things on a week by week and see that there's that improvement. I mean, I'll tell people that same year, again, 600, almost 700 accounts that I sold, my best day ever in door-to-door pest control sales was that summer. It was on July 4th, 2000. I sold 23 pest control accounts in one day. Wow. People love to talk about that, but you know what happened on July 3rd, the day before? You know how many I sold on July 3rd? 3. And that was far below my average when I was averaging about 7 or 8 a day. So now the next day after 23, I did 17. And okay. So again, but then I'm sure I went back down to average. And so sales can be very mercurial, right? They're up and down. You just never know. But ride the consistency when you can, but look at it on a longer timeline. And that's just mentally better. And I don't care if you're doing phone sales, if you're, a commercial rep, how much revenue am I generating on any given month? That's probably what you measure. That's great. Like don't take it in too small a chunks, as long as your output is the same. Right. As long as you're working the same hours with the same energy, with the same effort, then over time your averages are going to be more true than just maybe a very close view of a day or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great wisdom. It's great advice, because that's so true when you're doing sales. And it is such a mental game. It's such an internal game when you're doing sales, to be able to keep your own emotions in check, and your own mind and your own heart and everything else in check, to be able to balance and be able to approach every single day and every single time you're interacting with a customer, a potential customer. It's a tough gig. So to find someone who's willing to go door to door and knock, that's a special breed of human. And then from there, you have to go find that person. You got to train them, get them trained up the right way. And then they have to have some sort of internal strength to be able to handle this and have some sort of emotional intelligence and emotional control over their own internal thought processes to be able to handle it. I mean, you're talking about a pretty small sliver of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why the leader of this program, which a lot of you, it's probably going to be you, as the owner. And let me tell you a quick story, because I think this is pretty fascinating. So I consult for a roofing company, and this roofing company did $200 million last year. And they'd never done door-to-door until about a year or so ago. They hired me to kind of consult and build their program in that, which I've done. Well, you know what happened? The CEO, guy's in his 60s, okay? What did he do once we had all the scripting and everything dialed in? He lives in Puerto Rico. He flew to North Carolina, their office, last week. And this week, you know what he's doing? He's out knocking doors. And that's how invested he is in that. And that's a leader that's, again, leading from the front. I know that's a little bit of a cliche, but he is leading from the front. So if you want a door-to-door program and you really want it to go somewhere, you've got to be one of those those 1%ers as well. You don't need to be a 1%er for the rest of your life, but maybe for a summer or two you do, because you have to be on the doors with your reps. You have to be, again, that infant's dad or mom, right? Where you're taking care of that infant and you know the process. And so if you're not sold on it, I don't know how you can build a company with door-to-door as, again, just part of your growth strategy. It should never be all of your growth. Door-to-door should never be. For our company, it wasn't. In fact, towards the latter end of our tenure as a company before we sold, it was less and less of a priority to us because we were growing in other ways. Most companies, it's the reverse, right? They don't know door-to-door, they're growing, they're building a good solid foundation, and then it's like, okay, I don't know, pay-per-click's more expensive, all this ad spend is going through the roof, so maybe I should do door-to-door. Well, 100% you should do it. And when you do it, it can just be another tool in your belt of growth. I mean, and if you can manage it the right way and think about it as a $50,000, growth target for each rep that you hire, then you can look at it differently and say, wow, how much would I spend on a pay-per-click campaign to get $500,000 worth of business? And then kind of butt that up against what would I have to spend for a team, for a door-to-door team. And I bet nowadays it's actually pretty comparable based on where PPC is going.
Yeah, because PPC's gone up quite a bit. And with door-to-door, I think you end up with a better route density as well, because you're working specific.
You're talking about the efficiencies of door-to-door, right? We haven't gone there, Matt. It's like, holy cow, that's why door-to-door isn't just great in terms of quick growth, but it's smart growth. Right?
It's smart growth, because you don't have guys bouncing all over town to, because windshield time will kill you. And so you want that route density to be able to get as many treatments in a day. And so you're able to, densify everything. That's the way to do it. And so, so the door to door. And so I think PPC, or just even online digital marketing, 10 years ago, it was so cheap because not everybody was doing it, but now everybody's doing it. And so it's, now you're going digital marketing. Well, now the price of that's gone up to the place where, door to door seems comparable and you get the better efficiency out of it. Yeah. And you have the opportunity to build maybe a better impression, better relationship, better, quality of connection with a client versus, online it's very impersonal. It's just they're clicking a link and so then to build the rapport with your customer and build that loyalty and trust, it's doable, but I think it's a harder uphill battle when it's an online ad versus a in-person.
Yeah, and I mean, you can geofence those things now
Yeah.
and target to a zip code or whatever, but you're still not going to get the density that you're going to get with a door-to-door rep. When you,
Right.
I mean, we've had it. I was consulting for a company up in Canada years ago, and I started selling for them, and they just had me going out and, having their reps shadow me and seeing what I did. At one point during the day, they had 3 start trucks on the same street doing 3 separate starts at 3 different homes that I had sold, a few hours earlier. That's route density. Right. That's what we're talking about now. In 2 months, when they go back for the next visit, and they can go back on that same street and hit those 3 houses in a 40, 60 minute time frame versus the drive time and hitting 1 or 2 houses. Now, again, we're getting more done. We're putting less in wear and tear on our trucks and our tires and our fuel and all those expenses.
Yep.
Those are a fraction of what they would be if we're just super efficient with our routes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So if someone's listening going like, I know I need to do this, I need to get this team, I need to build it in-house. Like where do they go? What's the next step for them? The green book? The other one's, blue, there's a blue book.
All my books are sales tactics, which by the way, since we're talking about the books, Matt, the purple book is the new book, and that's the pest control book. Okay. Purple pest control. I know I did it because we're pest control guys. Right? We don't know math, and we don't know
colors. Starts with a P.
English. We know color. P and P, right? Purple.
P and
pest
P.
control.
I kill things for a living.
That book is all my scripts. So if you want the scripting, 100%. If you want recruiting advice, that's a whole different animal, and I'm happy to talk about that with the time that we have. There's pretty much, if you're going to get door-to-door people, in my opinion, there's a 4-pronged approach. Okay. The first prong is going to be my personal network. Who in their late teens to late 20s do I know? Is it my nieces, my nephews, my sons, my daughters? Is it me? If I'm a younger guy, is it my friends, my high school group, whatever? Who do I know in my personal network that I already have a relationship with that's looking for work that I could get, that's interested in making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in the next 4 months, right? That would be the first place to go, and maybe a one-off from that. Okay, my buddy. Now, who do you know? Get your buddies, type of a thing.
Yep.
If you can go that route, that's fantastic. That would be prong number 1. Prong number 2 would be your ad campaigns, right? And you could do meta ads, Facebook and Instagram. I hired last year for a garage door company I consult for. Through our meta ad campaign, we hired 463 reps last year for that.
Whoa.
And it was literally a meta ad. It was an infographic. That's what it was. And then we funnel people into a Wednesday night meeting, and I've been doing that every week for I don't know how many years now. And in 2025, we hired 463 people for them. So ads are great. Handshake, Indeed, you name it. LinkedIn. You can do a lot, but think about it like this though: where is a 19-year-old to a 26-year-old going to be hanging out? They're probably not going to be hanging out on Indeed, quite frankly. Maybe some of the maybe mid-20s, late 20s, possibly if you're looking for somebody to manage it. But the younger crowd's probably going to be on social media somewhere, and you can do other social media like TikTok. I don't get involved with TikTok. I don't have a TikTok, but there's other ways to advertise on a social media platform. So that would be number 2. The third way would be what I would call off-campus recruiting, and then on-campus recruiting would be number 4. And I'll just tell you briefly what those are. So off-campus recruiting would be like, I'm going to student housing at a college university near where where my office is, and I'm pounding on doors and inviting people to an information meeting. And I've got a whole platform with how we do an information meeting. Again, we probably don't have time on this one to talk about that, but how to put together an information meeting that basically gets people interested in the job. And we can go just target people off campus, just knock on student housing, apartments, whatever. On campus, then that's a different beast in that we're going to set up a table at a student center. We're going to get permission from the university or the college to do that. And we've got kind of a method for doing that as well, to get people to approach you and have startup conversations and funnel people into an information meeting. That's probably the next step. So those 4 work. Those 4 have worked for as long as I've been doing this. They continue to work. There are one of the companies that I'm familiar with that does a huge amount of recruiting in Utah, and they hire thousands of door-to-door reps a year. A couple of years ago, they told me they recruited kind of this campus kind of model. They recruited reps from 48 out of the 50 states.
Wow.
So it's not just a Utah thing anymore. This is going everywhere, universities, colleges, all over the place. So don't give me the excuse that I don't live in Utah or I don't live by, a bunch of people that serve 2-year missions. Like if you really want to do it, you just have to have a consistent presence on campus and consistent by weekly, every other week, maybe monthly at the very least. Because if they don't continue to see you, then it's disbelief. If they see you and they know you're going to be there every single week at the same place, in the same table, in the same location, then that builds some credibility for you, and it makes it easier to start talking to people anyway.
I love that. So ultimately, with your 4 different prongs, you're really pushing them all to an informational meeting of where you really break it down for them, and that's where you're trying to recruit them.
100%.
And yeah, absolutely. And then, so with the garage door company that you're working with, you have a weekly information meeting, and you're bringing people in, and you're meeting with them. And are you doing that online?
Yeah. So because we're hiring in 19 different markets,
it was like 400 people. You can't do that in one city, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've got to do that virtually. So ideally, it would be in person. If you got one location, if you're in a branch right now and you've just got one spot, then you're probably just be better off to do it somewhere. And it doesn't have to be these first interviews. These information meetings, you could rent out a room on campus, make it really easy for the students if that's the type of recruiting you're doing. Or you could rent out a little conference room at a hotel, or you could go to a Starbucks if it's a few people and just hang out and kind of give them just the basic information that an information meeting might consist of as far as generating interest or seeing, if next steps would be necessary.
Yeah. Is there a certain amount of people you want to see in that information meeting? Like if just one person shows up, is that awkward?
Yeah, we'd like, if that's the case, and all these things start slowly too, Matt, right? You don't expect to have 20 people. Now, you can do raffles and you can do free food, and there's ways to attract more people, but I might have people from my own organization there the first few as well. So if I bring 2 or 3 people, some technicians, maybe my wife or whatever, if I bring a few people in there, that's just going to help, because if it's me and one other person in the room, that gets really awkward. And I've been there. Like when I started with Orkin, we do these info meetings every week, and sometimes it'd be me and one other person, and it's like, okay, well, here we go. But you can incentivize people to bring their friends too when you talk to them earlier in the day on campus, for instance. Like bring a friend. We're doing a raffle. We're raffling off some AirPods, and so every friend you bring, you get another raffle ticket. Like giving free food. Like you can do some things to incentivize more people to go, because you're right. There's a different feeling and there's a different momentum in the room if there's a handful of people, dozens of people versus one or two people.
Right. Yeah. 1 or 2 people at Starbucks, 3 people at Starbucks makes sense. If you have an info meeting and you have 30 people show up to Starbucks, that would be chaos.
Right.
And likewise, you rent a big room out and 2 people are there, it's going to feel real weird. Yeah. So you kind of got to figure out like the energy of the room and like how the crowd dynamics play. And I think stocking the pond with some extra people in the room who are your friends, who are people who are supportive, and maybe existing employees and whatnot would be
people you've hired, right? Bring them in, and they can say, I'm doing it. Like, come do it with me, right? Like all those things, or I work for that company. Yeah, come join us. We're going to take good care of you. Like all of that is better than you being the only representative of your company, for sure. Especially on the small side, but then on the big side too. Like if you're targeting certain people and you want to talk to everybody before they leave, if it's just you and there's 20 people, good luck. Like there's going to be people slipping out the back door you're not going to even have a chance to talk to. So the more people you have there can help kind of facilitate those discussions with everybody before they leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I would think recruiting the talent would be one of the harder parts of building your team, is getting the right people, because you're talking such a small percentage of people in the world that you got to get. And so we're targeting younger people because they're going to have the energy and they're going to, that seems like a great, like summer job for a student. I have an 18-year-old and, I think, she has the right personality. She'd be great at doing that. I don't know if she wants to, but if she wanted to, I could see her doing great at knocking doors and selling something.
And they don't have a lot of bias too. Like you get to a lot of owners. That's what I really appreciated about this CEO of this roofing company. He's made more money than he'll ever spend. He's kind of in a different position in his life, but he's passionate about helping his business grow, and he wants to help his dealers. It's a franchise model. He wants to help his 200 dealers across the nation. Yeah. And so he's like, well, if we're going to figure it out, I'm going to do it. And he's doing it. He hired an 18 and a 19-year-old recently with the area manager, the franchisee that's there in market. And he's just loving every minute of it. He's like, these are like my grandkids now, and we're taking them out and we're showing them the ropes, and they started closing deals, and it's a party, right? It's like, this is awesome. Like we can grow in a way we've never grown before, and it's with door to door. And if I'm willing to go out and do it, I don't, and I'm in a position I'm in, every single one of my dealers, my franchisees, every single one of them should be willing to do it. Get off their butts, get out of their trucks or on their desks, and just go out and knock a few doors and see what happens. So, and I really feel like, Matt, my style of how I teach people to do door to door it's very low pressure. I'm using a lot of human psychology. I don't use pressure tactics, hard closes. That is just not me. That's not my style. And I think that's why my training resonates with so many people, is because it's replicable, and anybody who, again, is willing to do it can have the ability to learn my process to go through.
Man, that's awesome. Well, it's been great having you on the show today. I think like talking through this has been really good. You got the different books. You got the green one, the purple one. What other colors you have?
The white one's the one everybody knows. That's Door-to-Door Millionaire. So the white one is kind of the old school one. But yeah, definitely still applicable. That's kind of like for beginners, I would say. The green one, more Door-to-Door Millionaire, is for more advanced, experienced reps. And then the purple one, of course, if you're in pest control, you got to have the purple one. It'll help you close. If you're not doing door-to-door, it'll help you close more deals on the phones. It'll help you close more deals if you've got technicians out clover leafing. Like it's just scripting on how to talk to people that you go knock on their door. So
yeah, that's killer, man. That's great. So if they want to find these books, where do they find them?
They can just go to Amazon or lennygray.com/books. That'll take you to the Amazon page with all the books there. I narrate all the Audible versions. That's been the more popular one, is everybody's loving the Audible because they can hear me say it, my tonality. And how I say things, not just that I say, what I say, but how I say it. So yeah, they're available in everything: Kindle, Audible, paperback, hardcover. If you want to go crazy, and spend $15 instead of 10. I don't know. If you're a big spender, go get the hardcover.
Big spender, hardcover, baby, hardcover. That's the only way I roll. That's no, I love Audible books. It's great when you're driving around. You can be kind of listening to things, and I agree, hearing the tonality, especially with what your topic is there. And and part of PEB, I think one of the advantages of being part of a mastermind group like Pest Empire Builder is you surround yourself with people who are like-minded, who are pursuing the same things you are, who are organized. And I can tell you, every business that I've owned 10 of them. Every business that I've owned, I try to join a mastermind group in that industry because it always helps me learn from the best of the best, which is why we even do Pest Empire Builder. And it's like you get to put yourself in a room. And in fact, we have a live in-person event coming up in Houston. So if you are in the Houston, Texas area, or you want to come to the Houston for an event, we have one coming up. Then you can find that on the Pest Empire Builder podcast or a website. And all those links are in the description. And so you can find all of that stuff. But Lenny, it's been great having you. And I look forward to having you back again soon.
Let's do it, Matt. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, bye.